Alright, we're recording chapter 10, I think? Hang on. Yes, chapter 10 of Attack of the Clones. Um, medium-length chapter. I'm not sure how long I'm gonna... there are some points in here that might get me to ramble a little bit. Alright, so this is... starts with Padme packing so that, she can hide out at Naboo, which Anakin will go with. Then we get a scene on, on Camino. That's the name of the planet. I know that the species is, like, also Camino, but, on the planet Camino, with Jango and Boba that I definitely do want to talk about. It's very intentional, its presence here. But it's still a very interesting thing to discuss. Then we're back to Coruscant to see Anakin and Padme leaving. So while packing, you get... well, it's Anakin and Jar Jar there initially, along with Padme and Dorme. Her handmaiden's name is something like that, Dorme. Anyhow, and Jar Jar is basically going to be fulfilling the duties of Sender while Padme is away. And just... can I adjust that? Okay. Just trying to get the camera just right. And I think Jar Jar has already basically been sent off. Interestingly, she didn't tell him vote no on the thing, but in any case, the point that I want to get to is this. Padme gave a little sigh of frustration because basically she's been told she has to hide and she doesn't want to. I haven't worked for a year to defeat the Military Creation Act, not to be here when its fate is decided. Sometimes we have to let go of our pride and do what is requested of us, Anakin replied. He does point out that, really, Anakin, you're the one saying this? Pride, came the roaring response. Annie, you're young and you don't have a very firm grip on politics. I suggest you reserve your opinions for some other time. The problem is that he's right. Her statement is expressing pride. Because I haven't worked for a year to defeat the Military Creation Act, not to be here when its fate is decided. That's a statement of pride. She's proud of the work that she's done. I'm not saying this is a sinful kind of pride, but she clearly does have pride in it, because she wants to be there to see it when its fate is decided. Because I was like, this isn't setting up. This sentence isn't a statement of, because there's still work to do. That would not be pride. That's I still have business here. But this is not to be here when its fate is decided, as though things are already set. And it's like, I need to be here to find out. It's like, why? You did your work. Let the results be what the results are. It is a prideful statement to say, I have to be there for it. So, I do find that a little funny, but, still is the whole, just some tension, between them. That, there is some disagreement between them, but also, her continued obsession with her work. Just trying to think if there's anything. After that, we do get the whole, him basically pointing out, don't call me Annie, and call me Anakin, I'm a grown man now. And every time you call me that, I feel like the young boy again. And she does apologize and, starts to calm Anakin. They have a moment that could get awkward. Well, it does, technically. But, she doesn't want that, so that gets shut down, which frustrates him. But, then we get something here that is actually important. It comes up with the Jango Boba, interactions in, at Camino. Because he then goes off and starts complaining about essentially his relationship with Obi-Wan. Now, this is why the Jango Boba Fett thing is important, because when we get to them, they're on the outside of the city, above the water, on Camino, fishing. They're just fishing. And it's even basically just a nice father-son moment. And there's one thing that's like... I'll get to that, but I want to continue with this point. Well done, Jango congratulated, but if you had hit it a centimeter forward, you would have skewered the primary muscle just below the gill and rendered it completely helpless, because they're fishing. He's basically throwing a spear in, And it's, like, you hit it, good job. But if you had aimed just a little differently, there would have been no resistance. You would have just been able to reel it in immediately. The boy nodded, unperturbed that his father, his mentor, could always find fault even in success. The boy knew that his beloved father did so only because it forced him to strive for perfection, and in a dangerous galaxy, perfection allowed for survival. The boy loved his father even more for caring enough to criticize. There is more to unpack here, but it still is... This section is clearly written here to give a comparison of the Anakin-Obi-Wan relationship, which we've had previously. We've had other times in the book already where they are compared, with the comparison here with the Boba Fett and Jango Fett relationship, to see that in this situation, Boba actually likes, well, doesn't necessarily like, but he appreciates the criticism. He sees a value to it. Continuing to read in that section does kind of make clear that, yes, he appreciates it because Jango's probably taught him to appreciate it. Basically it is just explaining that Jango, he had a very hard life growing up, and so to him perfection is necessary for survival, and he has already impressed that onto Boba. So Boba does appreciate it because he sees it as, you are trying to help me live, trying to help me survive. So he gets that, whereas Anakin doesn't necessarily have that appreciation for the criticism from Obi-Wan, but it's also, as I do point out in my notes, there's different kinds of criticism. Before getting to that, one more thing I want to add. Boba is still just a boy. In fact, it is stated he's not quite 10... Well, yeah, he's either not quite... Yeah, he's not quite 10 years old yet. Whereas Anakin is 20. 20 and probably, days or weeks more. So, okay. So yes, their emotional developments are very different. You don't necessarily have that, Boba hasn't necessarily reached that point of trying to distinguish himself from Jango, which is part of teenage years and all that fun stuff. So there is that, whereas Anakin would have already gone through that, although it does seem he's also in the midst of that. But I want to come back to the different kinds of criticism here, in that this is, well done. So you did well, but if you had hit it a centimeter forward, you would have skewered it in a better place. So it's basically constructive criticism. It's like, this is good. You did well, but you can do better. Here's how you can do better, and here's why you need to do better. So it's still well done, which is valuable there. But then it's here's what you could have done differently, and here's why you should try to do it differently. So it's not only, here's a criticism, but here's the value of the criticism. Now, towards the end, so this is Obi-Wan talking to Anakin before they leave. You stay on Naboo. Don't attract attention. Do absolutely nothing without checking in with me or the Council. Yes, Master. Anakin answered obediently. But it's like, do nothing, absolutely nothing, without checking in, without asking for permission? Hadn't he earned a bit more respect than that? Hadn't he proven himself to be a bit more resourceful, a Padawan to be trusted? To be fair, from what we've seen, like how he handled chasing after and going through no, you kind of haven't earned a lot of that respect, but there is still something to be said for, if you treat somebody with respect and if you give them responsibilities, that can see them rise to the occasion. It still is. What is this kind of implied criticism that Obi-Wan is giving? Don't do anything. Well, he is straight up saying that, but I mean, if we take it as criticism, it's kind of implied you can't make these decisions on your own. So it is he is putting him down. And even in others, it does seem like that. And was it in the previous video? I know in one of the recent videos I had talked about how Obi-Wan is rigid, and it just seems he is very disciplined, and he is he was probably raised to be very disciplined. That's not how Anakin's mind and personality works. But Obi-Wan is like completely insensitive to that. He doesn't realize that, and he's just trying to use all the things that would work for him, and it's not working well. I mean, it's just one of those. I know it couldn't be different because it serves a purpose in the story, but at the same time, it's so fascinating to look at this, especially with all the comparisons that are definitely written in here intentionally, and be like, dude, Obi-Wan, you're part of the reason he becomes Vader. I mean, true. Vader has to be made. Obi-Wan, it is basically showing his character flaws. And then you do have, with the original trilogy, Obi-Wan does take responsibility. Well, claims responsibility. I'm not sure how much you can say necessarily took it. But he does recognize that he could have done better. He should have done better. Yeah, and it almost... It makes me curious about what would happen if you had a single author rewrite all 6 books. Rewrite all 6, so that you could guarantee coherence and consistency across all 6. Because there are some things when you change authors, things will be different. But also like write them all together as a single thing. That as well. So you're not one out and then you're going back editing single thing all the way across, because I could believe that they would keep some of the Obi-Wan Anakin relationship the same, like not changing really any words, maybe adding in a little bit to make it a little clearer how rigid Obi-Wan is. I mean, it's already, you can definitely tell, but you could do some things to make it clearer if you wanted to, but then have in A New Hope, or maybe even at the end of Revenge of the Sith, it could be interesting. We might see Obi-Wan starting to realize it then, that yeah, in the movies, he does even admit he failed Anakin. But is he just saying that? Is he just, you're my Padawan, I should have done better, because clearly, if you fell, that's on me. Or is it he realizes that, oh, no, I've actually been screwing up. And I know, like, I should have been paying more attention to you. Because, I mean, if nothing else, when he learns that Anakin is the father of Padme's children, it's like, that alone should have been a huge red flag to him that, yeah, I should have known this already. He should have told me. He should have been able to tell me. So, it will be interesting to see how some of that goes. What do I have next for this? Yeah, I did mention Boba's just under 10 years old. Because it mentions his, the 10th anniversary approaches. You think I don't know Boba's birthday? So it is a little bit off. Which would mean then that the army would have been formed, because I'm assuming that Boba's creation was at the same time as the clone army based on Jango. That those coincide. So that puts the creation of the army shortly after, within a year of the Phantom Menace ending. No, technically, Phantom Menace seems to only take like 2 weeks, so. Because, in this book, Anakin has turned 20, and he's described as just under 10. You're not far from 10 years old in the Phantom Menace. So yeah, that is interesting, because one thing with the movies, it was never completely clear the machinations behind the army being created. And I do wonder if it will be better explained in the book. I hope so. Because there is something where, like, who the Jedi Master is that requested they be made, that person is named, but it's like, okay, who is this person? What is their relationship to other things? And all that. So it will be interesting to get more details. Okay, 2 more points I have here. One is the explanation for why Jango wanted Boba. It's actually here. Okay. Boba would give Jango the pleasure of seeing all that he might have become had he grown up with a loving and caring father, a mentor who cared enough to criticize to force him to perfection. He was as good as a god concerning bounty hunters, concerning warriors, but he had no doubt that Boba, bred and trained for perfection, would far outshine him to become one of the greatest warriors the galaxy had ever known. In other words, he's being a dad. But, yeah, there is an element there. But I think it is also very specific here that he wants to see what he could have been. Because, the point being made that Boba is a clone of him. So is exactly him. He's just going to have a different life. And yeah, it's somewhat interesting because in theory, you think that Boba, he's certainly going to be wealthy. He does mention that, yeah, he's incredibly wealthy just from this. But if he's such a good bounty hunter, he should be wealthy from previous jobs as well. So for him, finding a woman to marry probably isn't necessarily the hardest thing. I mean, it's not just because he can support her economically. He could also potentially do so without having to be around too much and endanger her. And he would certainly also be a great physical specimen. Unsure if he would be considered handsome or anything like that, but I mean, my point being, it's not just the having a son to raise. I think it's more specifically having that exact copy, having that clone, so that he can see how much, how he could have turned out if only his life had been different. But at the same time, I suspect, but he had no doubt that Boba, bred and trained for perfection, would far outshine him to become one of the greatest warriors the galaxy had ever known. It does kind of make me wonder if Jango, how Jango would react if Boba was like, I want to become an artist or something like that. I want to become an engineer instead of a bounty hunter. I mean, it's kind of a fair question. I do also wonder then, because from the movie we know Jango gets killed when fighting Mace Windu towards the end, and Boba is seen in the midst of the battle or after it, picking up the Jango's helmet, potentially with his head still in there, and like bumping his head against it to just grieve, say goodbye, all that. Which I find somewhat interesting in light of this, because of how Jango's describing himself as the greatest warrior, and that Boba could also become that, could surpass him. And says, well, if you're the greatest warrior, then how a different warrior defeat you? I do just wonder if we're going to get anything like that in here. The last note I have is, it's kind of like Qui-Gon leaving to go into Mos Espa in the Phantom Menace, where it's like they want to keep it secret that Padme is returning to Naboo. So she and Anakin are dressed in, here we go, simple brown tunics and breeches, the garb of outland refugees, and they are getting on ships in the industrial sector of Coruscant, because it has potentially the greatest freight docks in the galaxy. Basically, because Coruscant can't possibly support everyone living on the planet, so they're constantly having to bring in materials. They'd also have to be constantly taking them out as well. I mean, a point that I made in a previous video, that Coruscant is by its nature going to be corrupt, because it is absolutely dependent on the products of other worlds, but because there is no production on Coruscant, you probably have a lot of people there that have no understanding, no appreciation of how they are totally dependent on those imports. So, yeah. The good old, if you think food comes from the grocery store, then you don't know how to grow it yourself, and you don't understand what goes into that. Anyhow, so they're gonna travel on those freights as just the peasantry of Coruscant. Yeah, except that they will have R2-D2 with them, so their own astromech droid, which is potentially recognizable as Padme's. Obi-Wan sees them off. Typho sees them off, the head of her security. And Dorme, her handmaiden, sees her off. So in other words, anyone watching the scene is going to be like, oh, I wonder, oh, she must be important because she's got all these people seeing her. Anyway, um, one thing kind of funny is it at the end mentions how those two going might not be that good because they are a bit too alike. Okay, I did accidentally turn on the tracking. That's fine. That's but I do disagree with it a little bit. Yes, they are both um stubborn. They're both stubborn, but in very different ways. I would say. But it's the way it describes them is that like yeah they're the same, and has in here. But of the pair who had just left the speeder bus, she Padme wasn't the most headstrong. Maybe it's just me. I associate headstrong a little differently than stubbornness. Padme it would definitely be headstrong. She makes her decisions and then sticks to them. That's it, because it's like they are her decisions. She weighs them heavily, weighs them carefully. So she makes no choice. She makes no decision, takes no course lightly. That is how she views it, and so yes, she's going to be headstrong. Anakin, I would say, is more so just stubborn. Where he doesn't necessarily think things through. He is not so careful in his thoughts. He just acts to satisfy whatever he feels he should do. That is not headstrong to me. That is a form of stubbornness and dangerous. Yeah. So it is those two. He might be more stubborn than she is, but her ability to reason, to be rational, I think would always defeat him. That she would be able to control him, and not even just because of his love for her, that like she can manipulate him. No. And not just that. She can. I don't doubt that she can if she chooses to. But I think it's also just he would never be able to defy her reasoning. More so that. So no, she is the stronger of these two in that regard. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else to really mention. Nothing really is coming to mind. I do want to do one thing though. I do want to do. It's not far. Here it is. Okay. I'm sorry, Anakin. So this is after he'd complained about being called Annie. It's impossible to deny that you've grown up. This is the whole, she doesn't want to engage in a relationship with him, and so is being careful. Nothing wrong with that. Although I don't know. There's some taking an aside to my aside. I don't like quite how this is written very much, but not for that reason. It's just I don't quite understand why she doesn't like it. Doesn't like the idea. Yeah, some recognition from Padme that he was indeed a man now, and perhaps a handsome one at that. And just, is it that she doesn't have feelings for him, doesn't want to have feelings for him, or just doesn't consider this time for any of it? I don't know, and I kind of wish I did know. As I've been saying, though, I don't think she finds his interest creepy. I think it's more it is kind of the whole Annie. Please don't call me Annie. I've always called you that. It's your name, isn't it? When you say Annie, it's like I'm still a little boy, and I'm not. I mean, it's... Yeah, so I don't think it's that. It's just she's still... And it just... I wish it were a bit clearer one way or the other with her own internal thoughts as to what it is, but maybe that's also part of the point, that she's confused as well. Anyhow. So she's just talking about how you've grown up. Master Obi-Wan manages not to see it. He criticizes me. He criticizes my every move as if I was still a child. He didn't listen to me when I insisted that we go in search of the source of the assassination. This is also something that was set up earlier, because he wanted to basically say that he's the one who was saying that we should have been doing this. And now, actually, Let me see if I can find that. Yeah, don't worry. Now the council has ordered an investigation. It won't take Master Obi-Wan long to find out who hired that bounty hunter. Should have done that from the beginning. It is better to take the offensive against such a threat. How would you know? To find out the source rather than to try to react to the situation. He meant to go on to claim credit for asking for such an investigation from the very beginning, to let Padme know that he had been right all along, and that it had taken the council long enough to come around to his way of thinking. He could see, though, that her eyes were already beginning to glaze over, so he quieted and let her speak. But then this is here, then over here. Criticizes my every move, yeah. Mentors have a way of seeing more of our faults than we would like. It's the only way we grow, she said. Don't get me wrong, Obi-Wan is a great mentor, as wise as Master Yoda and as powerful as Master Windu, which is actually kind of funny because Yoda should be more powerful, but anyhow. I'm truly thankful to be his learner, only although, there's a little bit of a break there, only although I'm a Padawan learner, in some ways, in a lot of ways, I'm ahead of him. I'm ready for the trials, I know I am, he knows it too, he feels I'm too unpredictable. Other Jedi my age have gone through the trials and made it. I know I started my training late, but he won't let me move on. That must be frustrating. It's worse, he's overly critical, he never listens, he just doesn't understand, it's not fair. So, yeah, it's... You see that, and then you compare it to the boy loved his father even more for caring enough to criticize. Because I did want to read through, what his feelings are towards Obi-Wan. It's not like he doesn't have a love and a respect for Obi-Wan, but it is... He doesn't feel like he's being treated the way he should. And in some... You know what? No, I'm going to say he's absolutely right. He's completely right. He's completely right. Because Obi-Wan has been shown to not praise him appropriately when it comes up, to not let him know when he's forgiven. That's also important. But also, I don't think he's being put down the way he needs to be at times. I mean, he did a lot of damage to the senatorial apartments, and there's nothing mentioned about that. I mean, he is... There are ways that it is shown he clearly is... Oh, I didn't realize I was going this long. He's clearly still acting the child. Still acting as a child. And he needs to be... That needs to be stopped, essentially. He needs to be told, no, you need to act the adult, but also that does include not just trusting that, oh, you know when you've done well. It's like, no, you do need to say that. You do need to, when he is forgiven, let him know that. Because otherwise, you're keeping him the child. Because you're not showing that there is a change here. It's just, you did wrong, you did bad, go to your room kind of thing. It's like, yeah. So he is right. But he needs to be punished more. Because it's also, an aspect of punishment is responsibility. It's a part of punishment is taking responsibility. In some cases, that's the responsibility is you getting spanked, you getting grounded, that you're taking the responsibility by that. And in other ways, it can be just having to accept what you've done, being compelled to accept what you've done. So that would be like, I don't know if I would trust, well, maybe he could repair the elevator that he damaged in the senatorial apartments. It was like, no, you have to go repair that. I think he'd have a better shot at repairing the speeder that he stole. Like, bring that back. You have to now find the owner, apologize to him for taking it, and thank them for the use of it, even though it wasn't offered. But any damage to it, you repair. You repair for him. Like, that's what you do. That would be fine. That would be better. But instead, it seems like, nah, it's okay. So, yeah. So, I think I know, I feel, I can keep rambling, but I know I shouldn't. I know I shouldn't. So, I will stop. But yeah, just, I'll end on this. Clearly, the comparison of Obi-Wan and Anakin with Jango and Boba absolutely intentional here. Just as it was when we've had some moments to compare Anakin's relationship with Obi-Wan and Anakin's relationship with Palpatine, even though that is inconsistent. Even the relationship with Padme, because she listens. And she cannot take the mentor role with him, I feel. He feels himself too powerful. He doesn't have the kind of respect for her to enable her to be a mentor to him, but the respect she shows him is still something he does feel he's getting from Obi-Wan. And in some ways, he's not. So I'm not objecting to these comparisons. When some of the repetition stuff that I've complained about was when it was the same thing being repeated over. But this is different examples. Also, the relationship with the functional relationship within the Lars family. Klieg, Shmi, Owen, and Beru. All that. Again, a comparison that all these different comparisons showing different relationships, but how those are all functional. Anakin and Obi-Wan's is not. But that's supposed to be the most crucial, the most critical between them. So I am liking that, and that it is through these different ways, instead of it just being like hammering on just one, which they've hammered other things repeatedly before. I'm glad it's not with this, because this is an important one. Now, I will stop. See you next time.